One of my favorite authors is Steven Pinker. His books are right there. I've read like 4 of his books. He's a psychologist at Harvard, and Harvard uploads a lot of their curriculum online. And he's doing like basically Psych 101 at Harvard this semester, so I've been watching some of the videos. And today I learned about a specific rat experiment which was pretty interesting. In the early 1900s, there was this branch of psychology called behaviorism which became really popular. The most famous behaviorist is B.F. Skinner, but there was another American psychologist named John B. Watson. I forgot his name. Behaviorism is the idea that behaviors are shaped entirely by interactions with the environment. Now, we know that's not true. There are innate behaviors, and behavior has a large genetic component as well. Watson was so confident in his ideology that he said if you gave him a dozen well-formed infants, he could turn them into whatever you want, from beggar and thief to millionaire or king, essentially. Well, as I said, no, that's really not true. So what I learned in the psychology video was there's this experiment on rats done in the 40s by a guy named Tryon. He took a genetically diverse group of rats and he watched them solve a maze, and he kept track of how many errors they made as they went through the maze. Then what he did is he took the group of rats that made the fewest errors, turned them into a breeding group, and then he took the other rats which made the most errors and made them into a separate breeding group. And generation after generation he would do this. He would take the low error, which he called the bright rats, as in like the smart ones, and he would take the smartest of the bunch and breed them specifically, and then he would take the dullest of the rats and breed them systematically generation after generation. Well, it only took a few generations for there to be a massive split. In the first generation, the normal distribution is extremely low and extremely flat. There's a huge range, with some rats making a lot of errors, some rats making very few errors, and the average is in the middle, but again, it's not really like a bell curve, it's more kind of like a plateau. But after just a few generations, you get an almost sort of like Pareto distribution, with the bright rats with the average being really high towards the low side, and then the dull rats making huge numbers of errors. So instead of having these incredibly broad normal distributions, the average was more clumped together rather than spread out. Oh, look who just crawled onto my lap. Say hi, Gan. Hi, dear. Okay. So the point was that no, it can't just be the way the rats interact with their environment. They are basically pre-programmed to either be very good at this or very, very poor at this. Now, disclaimer, was he actually breeding for intelligence or maze-solving intelligence specifically? Not necessarily. I don't know when the last time this experiment was repeated and if the genomes of any rats have actually been looked at, but it could be that the quote-unquote dull rats had sensory motor disabilities that simply weren't perceivable in the 1940s. They definitely would have known if the rats were visually impaired, and that's the reason they were so bad at solving mazes, but it's not terribly unlikely to imagine there could be something else that was, making these rats so bad at solving mazes. It's not necessarily intelligence, but that is what I learned today. So come back tomorrow to see what else I've learned, and thank you for watching.